Okay, welcome then to the first James Bond Club Ireland podcast. We're very, very excited to be here because today we're talking about Goldeneye. Yes, 1995's Goldeneye, and we have 30 years of Goldeneye to talk about now. It's particularly exciting because obviously it has the Irish Bond, and we also took a trip to Navan, which we're going to have a look at it now, which is Pierce Brosnan's hometown. But first of all, we're very, very excited to be joined by the world's foremost GoldenEye and Pierce Brosnan fan, Sean O'Hare. No, it's Calvin.
No.
Welcome.
Hey.
Thank you very much for joining us.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Obviously, known you guys for some time now, so it's just really exciting that you're putting a podcast together, and this is the first one, so it's very exciting. I hope that's not I hope that this isn't like the production order and the release order are going to be different, and this is actually like the 10th one that you're going to be releasing now, so you'll have to awkwardly edit around my comments here.
No, we're in fact
you found us out.
You're here to put us on the map, essentially, because rather than us having to introduce our guest, it's possible that everybody watching this knows who you are and doesn't know who we are. Even the Irish Bond fans are like, "Who are the lads interviewing Calvin Price?" I don't know who they are. So look, it's great to have you. We know you're a huge GoldenEye fan. We know you're a huge Brosnan fan. For anyone who hasn't seen Calvin's review of GoldenEye, it's pure entertainment in and of itself.
Thank you.
The show notes below, so please do have a look at it. And on our side, we have Sean O'Hare, Kevin O'Callaghan, Vice Presidents of the James Bond Club Ireland, Andy Watson, our club secretary, and we have John Gagan, very special guest as well, all the way from Navan, James Bond Club Ireland member. And John was fantastic. When we went to visit Navan last weekend, he had done all his homework, although I don't feel he did have to do much work because he seemed to know it off by heart anyway. And he took us to all the locations. He took us, first of all, we met in the hotel where Pierce was presented with, what was the name? What was the honor he was presented with?
He essentially got the freedom of the town, so the freedom of Navan. So he's actually the first person to get that. So I'm guessing it was something they made up so they could get Pierce into town to be able to present some kind of honor. But it basically meant that he could sell his livestock on the fair green in the town tax-free.
And has he ever been doing that?
Sorry?
Has he ever been seen selling livestock on the?
I haven't heard of it.
Doesn't pay for itself, so
Bono, I think, got something similar for his Freedom of Dublin.
Bono did, yes.
Green,
Bono on the Edge, and they did actually bring sheep into Stephen's Green, I think. Not entirely unrelated, since they actually wrote the song that Tina Turner sang in this way. So another Irish one.
It was something that's been on our radar for a while, though, Paul, right? Because, with Brosnan obviously being that from Meath and Navan, and it was something that we really wanted to kind of do as part of the club. And
100%.
Was a better 100% anniversary.
And I think what we want to do today is just have a real nice conversation with everyone here to ask them, what GoldenEye means to them. Where did it come in their sort of Bond fandom journey, and how has it stood up over 30 years? But I mean, before we do that, just to set the tone, we might just watch a little clip from your tour of Navan. So roll it there, Roisin, if you don't mind. And by Roisin, I mean Michael Kerwin, who's pulling the knobs and levers behind the scenes there. We'll just have a little look at what we did in Navan.
Right, so there you go, lads. Number 2, Finion's Terrace. So Pierce would have lived, as I said, till the age of 6 out the country with his grandparents. Then he went between a couple of aunts and uncles, and then he went to live in this boarding house with a woman called Eileen O'Reilly. There would have been people, say, coming into Navan to work from the country, and they would have stayed here like a lodging house. So he would have stayed here.
Okay, so that was John talking to us about Pierce's humble upbringings outside his house on St. Finian Street. I mean, he really did have a sort of a disruptive childhood by a lot of standards. Would you say that's true, John?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, his mother went to work in England as a nurse. At the age of 4, he would have been left with his grandparents. He lived with his grandparents from 4 to the age of 6 when they passed away. And then at that stage, then he would have lived with a few aunts and uncles before moving into that house there. So it was a lodging house. So yeah, he actually lived further out the country from where we seen there, that mid-terrace house. So yeah, about 15 minutes again outside. So he talks about, people living beside a convent there and milking cows, and he moved then into that mid-terrace house. As you could see there, it's just like any ordinary mid-terrace house you'd see in any other street or village in Ireland. To think then that what he went on to become from that.
Yeah, and I mean, Navan is a kind of a booming, bustling town now, because Dublin has been thriving for a number of years, and Navan is more or less a satellite town of that. But in 1950s or 60s, that was not the case. It was
absolutely very much a rural, like typical rural Irish country town. A lot of people would have worked in the farming industry around here. There'd be very little in terms of industry for people to work in. It obviously became a commuter belt since then, but very strictly religious Catholic upbringing, in the town. So yeah, it was very, very much typical of any other Irish country town, I suppose, at the time in the 50s. Deeply religious.
Yes, I actually lived in Navan for 3 years, as I told you, and I was more than chuffed, Calvin, to discover that I actually attended the same school as Pierce Brosnan, but I didn't realize it because they've changed the name of it since he was there.
That's crazy.
Clearly, I was not in the day they taught how to become a global movie star, unfortunately. God, that sucked. But yeah, so that was tremendous.
Those lessons after you left, Paul.
That's probably it, yeah. Hey, how did that work? Pierce is older than I am. But you can imagine then the move to London, huge, big, bustling city, and then seeing Goldfinger, as he likes to tell, for the first time was a big thing, right?
So such as 64, he says, I think in 64, he says when he went to London, he seen Goldfinger for the first time.
Yes.
And he talks in another interview that Norman Barry one, I think it was, where he's another interview Owen put up, but he talks about going to the Lyric and to the Palace, the two cinemas in Navan.
Yes.
So I would love to know if you actually seen Dr. No or From Russia with Love in Navan. Those cinemas.
Well,
that would be.
We need to go back and find the logs. And did you show Dr. No? Is it possible that?
Yeah.
Well, what I like about that story is it's kind of gone full circle now, because Goldfinger was a formative movie for Pierce, and now Goldeneye has become a formative movie for so many, including the so-called Goldeneye generation, of which many of you guys are a part, right? And Calvin, you are probably the foremost ambassador for that generation. Would you say so?
I don't know if
I don't want to put that responsibility on you, but you are certainly a part of that generation.
Certainly, yeah. Like, I hate to kind of, we're mainly talking about the film and 30 years of the film, but you have to talk about the game as well, talking about the GoldenEye generation, and it's like I'd certainly seen Moonraker, Diamonds Are Forever. I remember that they were my first two Bond films that I ever saw, but when it came to the game, my memory's slightly hazy on it, but I'm pretty sure that me and my friends, we were playing the game, and then it was like talking, and then like, hey, do you know there's like films about about this James Bond guy, and one of the they made this game is based on the film. So that was sort of slightly strange. And then I do remember seeing the film for the first time on VHS. My grandma had the VHS, and again, it was because like, oh, you've seen these other films with this character and you like that game, so why don't you just actually watch the film? But yeah, no, it's a real it is like I think for a lot of like 30-something Bond fans like myself, it is a real sort of milestone film in the canon. And I know a lot of people that absolutely adore it, and it's one of those films that's like most people's top 5, top 10 certainly of the series.
For 30-somethings such as myself, I feel the same way. Sean, you'd be of a similar vintage there. What was the impact for you? How did you get into this? I know this is one of your favorites, if not your very favorite.
It is. Well, I'll take the 30-something as well. I'll definitely fall into that age bracket. But yeah, similar. Just when Calvin was speaking there, similar way. Santa brought an N64 to our house, and GoldenEye was on the box and everything. And at the time, I was aware of Bond, but again, wasn't into Bond in any way. Then you realise from this will be like same as a movie. So, I better find out what this movie is. And then you realise there's a whole collection of films after that. So similar type way to Calvin, fell into Bond that way. Tomorrow Never Dies had just come out, and I just missed it from the cinema because there was a certain film called Titanic came out and put it out of the cinema.
You love a good romance, don't you, Sean?
Yeah, there's only a one screen cinema in Newry, so it's got the boot, so to speak. But yeah, so again, I got the VHS as well, and then Tomorrow Never Dies, and it all took off from there. As I say, that Pierce then is my Bond. That got me into Bond. So yeah, I'll talk all day about GoldenEye, lads. To be honest with you, yeah, it's it's spawned so much. Got me into Bond, got talking to people, got involved in the club, made friends, people you would never know or speak to any other time. So yeah, everything stemmed from GoldenEye for me. So it's a huge part of my Bond fandom. Yeah.
See, I really like that both of you came through the games and were like, well, what's the films about? Because for me, and probably, I'm not sure, Kev, you're probably a bit younger than me, but Andy, you're around the same age. For me, right, I can remember I was such a Bond fan, and I was determined, because there was a lot of talk in the press and everywhere else at the time that, well, the wall has come down now, it's the end of history, that Francis Fukuyama quote, where's Bond's place in the world? What's he going to do? And I was like, it doesn't matter, he's a great character, he's going to go on, but there was a lot of talk about this. And there was the big gap. And I mean, at that time, believe it or not, I can remember people saying Bond's over. It's dead now. It's all about the diehards and stuff like that. And I was like, no. And I did very much want Tim to come back. But I can remember like, starting to get worried because there wasn't any, movement. And I can remember, like people say they remember John F. Kennedy being shot. I wasn't quite as dramatic as that, but I can remember that June afternoon in 1994, listening to the radio. I was in Germany as a student at the time, and I can remember hearing that Pierce Brosnan, Irish actor Pierce Brosnan, was announced as the new James Bond, and I was like, oh, okay, well, no more Tim, which is bad, but at least we've got a new Bond, and he's Irish. Let's see where this goes, I was very, very excited. I mean, Kevin and Andy, do you guys remember that? Did you feel that kind of nervousness as well?
Andy, you go first there, and I'll chime in then.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say I had a different journey to it than you did, Paul. Because for me, there was two disappointing Bond films pre-GoldenEye.
Oh, here we go.
He's gone there.
It's very controversial.
You, Kim.
I know it was controversial, but for me, seeing GoldenEye at the cinema, which was probably about the fifth one I had seen at the cinema, because I am that old. GoldenEye, for me, it was a return to Bond. Right. So from Live and Let Die, A View to a Kill to GoldenEye, there was a 10-year gap. So I'm used to a long wait for a new Bond.
I didn't actually think of it in those terms. Wow, yeah. That's true. So you were like, okay, this is a return to form after the missteps of the Dalton era.
Yeah, as soon as you're sitting in the cinema, and as soon as you see the run across the dam, the stand, the look over the top of it, then like the vertigo prior to the leap. To me, as soon as that happened, that was Bond back again.
And we'll go through so many of these because there are so many parts that stand out. But I remember watching the title sequence at the time and thinking, oh my God, they've done it. I thought this was the moment that they've really done it. Obviously, there was the amazing pre-title sequence. But when the communist USSR iconography was crumbling, I was like, they've hit it. They've leaned in instead of trying to, contrive something. They've leaned in and they've hit it right on the head. I thought this was brilliant. And then watching Calvin's review, where he describes Sean Bean's character meeting Brosnan's Bond in the sort of graveyard of the iconography, and Calvin's like, "What is that exactly? Is it like some sort of cruising ground for old agents?" And I was like, ruined my image of it in the most hilarious possible way. So anyway. So there you go. Thanks for that, Calvin.
Like you could intercut that scene with like sequences from. Has anyone seen William Friedkin's the Al Pacino film Cruising, where Al Pacino's just like cruising around Central Park? You could just like edit the scenes together, and it would be indistinguishable. I swear.
Oh, someday someone is going to do that. Yeah.
But Paul, you're right. I mean,
and we heard it here first.
Yeah.
It was a
I'm sure
long
Pierce would be
6
fairly
years.
sought after.
Sorry, what were you saying, Kevin?
I was saying, sorry, there might be a little delay. I was saying it was a long 6 years.
Yeah.
It felt so long, and the world had changed so much. I think we'd seen such a change that it really just emphasized, could they come back and do it? And when they did, they came back so confidently with it. Like you say, that opening, the whole mixture and formula was there, but there was just something new about it of its time, but not dated of its time.
Yeah. And even then,
that's why we're still talking about it.
I don't think we could possibly even have estimated what an impact GoldenEye would have. Like it's kind of an icon in its own right. We didn't understand that at the time. We just thought, oh my God, thankfully they've saved themselves from irrelevance here, you know? Because you got to remember at the time as well, there was lots of coverage about how Cubby Broccoli was aging, you know, Harry Saltzman was gone. There was the trouble with MGM. What's going to happen here, you know? I think the fact that Timothy Dalton's films hadn't been commercially successful was construed as the public no longer having an appetite for Bond, and this film proved all of that to be wrong. But I know that you've mentioned, Calvin, in your review as well, how it also marks a changing of the guard. You know, so many of the old faces went. Maybaum went, John Glenn went. There was a whole host of the new team. What do you think that kind of had as an impact as well on the film?
Oh, huge! I think that, you know, the difference in so many, you know, elements of the filmmaking in the jump from License to Kill to GoldenEye is more significant probably than the jump from Dr. No to License to Kill in a lot of ways. Like there's a real like, you know, I think Martin Campbell, you know, chiefly as director, like was responsible for a lot of that, and I think he had a great level of self-awareness. Maybe I don't know. I think he's a director that managed to avoid a lot of, like, you know, what people might describe as like cringy Bond moments that people that aren't, you know, diehard Bond fans would find, you know, a little, you know. But I think he's got a real, and I think that's, you know, the same, you know, I think he brought that same sense to Casino Royale as well, where there's a real sort of like just knowing about the whole thing, and an energy and a pace, and it feels real and tactile. It's gritty as well. Even though I don't think that, you know, GoldenEye is considered as gritty a film as something like License to Kill, for instance, or Majesty's Secret Service, but it really is. Like, some of the fights are pretty brutal. There's that whole fight with Bond and Alec at the climax, which is really, and they had
bone crunching.
Exactly, yeah, and they had to cut, you know, some shots, some snippets from it to get a 12 certificate here in the UK for like the video and the DVD. So I think it's, you know, I think Martin Campbell at the top, and then everyone else, you know, that they assembled. There's still some of the, you know, I don't want to say old guard because that sounds dismissive, because these people did do great work on this series.
Meddings, for example, and the and all the brilliant stuff before he passed.
Exactly. But I feel like there was enough kind of fresh new blood in it to really rejuvenate the whole thing, which is
I personally like the look of it as well. I think, is it Phil Mayhew? Is that the name of the cinematographer? He did a great job on it.
Yes, that's
from the moment it opens up, it's like, it looks probably even bigger than it actually is on the screen with that fantastic you know, it's incredible. And
it's a lot of stuff that we probably take for granted now, where when it gets to MI6, and it's not the sort of, you know, the three wall, almost like a TV sitcom kind of, you know, with the camera there kind of thing. It's, you know, when Bond goes into Moneypenny's office, the camera's following him through, and it's kind of like handheld, and it's, you know, it's things like that really just sort of like brought it into, you know, the new era, I think, really. Yeah,
I agree. There's something about that office scene as well. I don't know if it's my imagination or not. I feel like you can hear the soft carpets that they're walking on, which is a change from the old leather kind of M's of old. You know, it's different. It's fresh from the 90s and stuff like that, which is cool. It's really, really cool. But of course, one of the things I noticed as well is that film moves along so brilliantly for such a number of reasons, including great characters, that you sort of skip past the bits that are like, oh, you know, that doesn't quite make sense. Like, for example, the way he goes down a huge dam and ends up at the top of this base that he has to take an airplane off. It was like, how high was the place he started from? Anyway, that kind of madness is kind of hilarious to think back on. But it just
don't worry about that, Paul. Don't worry about all that. There.
I'm not. I'm just getting swept along, and I'm enjoying every moment of it.
I think that's part of the refreshing part of it, though, is that it's the first time in about 15 years John Glenn is not directing a Bond movie, and that is a sweeping change in itself. Yeah. And when you kind of look at it and you kind of go, this is familiar, but it's different, and it's moving, but it's different. And I think that helps it feel modern, even 30 years on. I think it still does that.
But as well as that, Kevin, like the pressure was on. They had to make this film work. So everyone was on the top of the game. And I go back to Calvin's point, like what an inspired choice Martin Campbell was coming on as director. Like we keep saying, like this is Barbara and Michael's first go, for want of a better word. Cubby had handed the reins over, and they get a man like Martin Campbell in and look at the job he does. So like you're off the races straight away. It's amazing, a great choice. Like somebody, like I don't know about Paul, Andy, and that. Like, would it be somebody that you would have been looking to direct a Bond film if you were to pick somebody? Like you wouldn't have come up with that name, would you?
Well, when I was 20 years of age or whatever it was when it came out, I had no idea who Martin Campbell was. None. And I wasn't really that deep into directors and stuff either, so I didn't really have a notion of what was going on behind the scenes. That wasn't until it came later. All I was really concerned was that there was definitely a cultural question mark over Bond's head, and I know that even though there is constantly talk about how they had to make money stretch to make that film, because obviously they were being tested and they weren't being giving a lavish budget, they weren't getting away with that. But in my mind, it looks expensive. I mean, it looks more expensive than License to Kill. It looks lush today. And maybe I'm just being hoodwinked by the quality of Pierce's Brioni suits, but the damn thing looks great even today, right?
It looked back to cinema quality. Like the previous two, to me, looked like made for TV quality of the filming.
Yeah, I think License to Kill particularly has had that accusation made against it. All right, but maybe they were just like, okay, we're not taking any risks at this point. We're just going to go with some. But I think one of the great things about it is they managed to hit the tropes really well. Bond in the tuxedo in the casino. But this is something this is the sign of great reviewers. Calvin, like you're articulating stuff that I've got in my brain and I haven't managed to get out of my mouth. And I'm like, yes. Why do they have a romance theme in the fucking casino when they're there, when he's sizing her up? It's like, this is not a romance scene, But they were trying to hoodwink us a little bit into thinking that it was the Bond girl. But those kind of things I realize after the fact, but it's the very nature of the sweep that film takes you on that you kind of only notice it when you go back to it a number of times, like maybe 4,608th time. I feel.
Oh, totally. It's like some of the plot hole stuff regarding like Alec getting fake shot in front of Bond with a gun that Orumov then uses to shoot someone else, but then if they were going to try to kill Bond anyway, why would they go through all this? It's stuff like that doesn't. There's no value in scrutinizing it too much. Just go with it, and it'll be it'll be fine. You'll enjoy the ride.
Exactly.
I didn't know it was so easy to hotwire Russian tanks. That's the one.
It's actually grown up in Navan. You see, there's a lot of Toyota Starlets that he'd had practice on as a kid.
That's what it was. Of course it was.
No disrespect to Navan, John. I'm only rising you.
Can I just ask you guys?
Too many Perrier trucks, luckily, in Navan, parked in the centre of the main road in Navan.
I'm curious to know if any of you guys like was Pierce Brosnan a known quantity at the time when he was announced as Bond? Did you obviously I know of Remington Steele and he was in films beforehand, but was he like a name that was recognizable that you were like, oh, they've got that guy, great?
Yes, I mean, I'm old enough to answer that. And I think Remington Steele.
I can back that up.
Yeah, Remington Steele was popular at the time.
I'll third it.
Cool.
It was The Manions of America, which was a drama about an Irish family that had, it was a kind of, I was too young. It was boring and soap opera as far as I was concerned because I was a kid. But then there was this, improbably handsome dude in it who was like, yeah, he's Irish. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And so he was making a name for himself. What I really enjoyed him in was Fourth Protocol. And when they were talking about him being Bond and he missed out on Bond, I thought, God, he could be really cool because he's so cold and nasty in that, you know. I mean, he's a bit skinny and he looks funny in the leather jacket, but he's cool. So.
Was that quite a known thing at the time? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Kev.
No, I was going to say he made the news even when he was finishing Remington Steele here, because he filmed some of it over in
that's right,
Ashford Castle. It was on primetime news here, 6:00 news, and they interviewed him and saying, well, Pierce is eager to move on from Remington Steele, but he's finishing up, and what are you going to do next? In Irish movies and Irish stories he was talking about, and he was that well known here that he would get a spot on the news or get a spot on a chat show, whatever. He was our own Hollywood royalty, I think, in our own way then, even then.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, my introduction to him would have been Mrs. Doubtfire now, so I wasn't lucky enough to be the Remington Steele generation. So
was that
a different take to the new
Sunday
Mrs. Doubtfire, really?
Yeah.
Because was it known prior to...
evenings at 5.
Go on, Calvin.
I was a bit late. Sorry, go, Calvin.
Oh, no, it's all right. Was it known prior to the GoldenEye announcement that he was, like, signed pretty much for, like, Living Daylights? Was that a known thing, or was it sort of like a rumor? Because I know that obviously at the time Eon had taken pictures with him signing for Living Daylights and all that, but that was sort of brushed under the rug as far as I'm aware.
I'm gonna say yes, but I'm old now, so I could be conflating my memories there. I think it was known. I think it was known that he had. I don't know, definitely not the detail, and definitely I don't think we hadn't seen those pictures of him with John Glenn, but I think it was known that he'd had a brush with Bond before.
It was hinted, Paul. I think at times it was, Doug, would you have interest in Bond, or what about Bond?
Yeah.
And I think he kind of might have said maybe, or brushed it away.
Which is why we felt when he was signed, it felt, well, he was a shoe-in anyway. But that wasn't, in fact, the case. I know the studio wanted him, but Michael and Barbara had been testing a whole bunch of people, including other Irish actors like Liam Neeson.
That's right.
And I can't remember who else. But he that was what surprised me. He definitely wasn't a shoe-in as far as Eon were concerned. And then there's that story, I think, where Cubby taps his cane on the ground and says, "We're going with Pierce." Brilliant Cubby impression. So yeah, that's what my memory is telling me. I can't corroborate that with actual fact, but I think it was known at the time that he had a brush with Bond and missed out. But he was putting on a brave face, like, and he says he wouldn't have done a good job in the Living Daylights. I think he probably would have. He was very, very fresh faced. That's the only thing. He was very, very young looking in that, and he does look a little bit more mature. I mean, if you could chisel a more perfect human, only the Greeks could have done it. The Brosnan's face in GoldenEye is just like, that's ridiculous, Yeah. But he's very, very cool. And I remember when the first publicity pictures were coming out, and he looked cool in the suit, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be good," It's going to be great.
Yeah, and then he improved further with age.
Yeah, he still looks great. But
I meant in his tenure as Bond. I think he.
Oh, you think he did
with age
better as he went on? Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And didn't he go into a whole fitness regime? Getting ready for that role as well. I know they're talking about Daniel Craig bringing the fitness to Bond, but I think he really got into great shape for that too. He looked great. He really took his health and fitness, seriously, preparing for the role.
Yeah, I mean, he was quite athletic as well. I think some of the fight scenes that he does look really, really good.
Absolutely, yeah.
I have no complaints on that. I mean, I know everyone sort of says, "Oh, the new standard came kind of with the Bourne films, and then Daniel Craig was all buffed up." But I have no problem with Brosnan. As you say, Calvin, that fight at the end is just so great. But there are so many highlights. Pick one. For me, I'm going to say, if I may, Isabella Scorupco, I think, is just a standout, and we so enjoyed her in the big screen as well, just kicking Bond in the shins and "Get us out of here!" She's so good, and that's going to be my highlight. But what other highlights would you guys call out? Maybe start with you, John. What was your highlight?
Yeah, for me, that really sits with me was the whole M introduction scene. It was like something completely different. You have female. She brings her into the office. You know, do you want a whiskey? Like lovely, really like nice and chilled out, and then they really kind of have a go at each other, and just that spark, like it's just a really memorable.
Yeah, Calvin.
I'm on a similar vein. I think I'm going to cite the Q scene actually, because I think that it's perhaps a retooling of a well oiled format at that point, but just. At that point, Desmond's Q had become a bit more of like a wacky inventor type. Like throughout, you can see that sort of transition in the Timothy Dalton films as well, like I think Living Daylights especially. And I think GoldenEye really harnesses that he's so like gleeful about the gadgets that he's showing Bond, and I think he's got a great energy to him as well. Like I know you can tell in one bit where he's talking about the belt, and you can see his eyes are like going beyond Pierce to read the cue cards that are being held up behind him. But it doesn't matter because there's so much going on in the scene anyway, and it's just the whole environment's really exciting, and the phone booth gag I love, and then I love the dummy blowing up, and
I love the way he has a wicked sense of humor. Anytime someone gets squished in a phone booth or a dummy gets blown up, he kind of has a wicked he enjoys watching people getting slapped around a bit, which is kind of cheeky Q. I enjoy that as well. It's a funny and Q or Desmond Llewellyn, he does that effortlessly at this point. He's like, I'm older now. It's just like whatever. This is great crack. It's good fun. Yeah, that's very cool. Andy, do you have a highlight for GoldenEye?
Yeah, you almost stole my thunder with it, Paul, because I think Isabella Scorco for me is the standout for the film, and immediately upon watching it, she jumped straight into at least top 3, if not top 2, all time for me, and has remained there. Yeah.
Because she's so capable as well, I mean, I love, as Calvin said, she cashed in all her karma chips on that particular day at work. Nearly got killed about 18 times. But when she just walks in and just assumes the role when she's trying to get into a computer, and she pretends she's going to purchase a load from these guys. And I am old enough to remember that the specs she calls out, they sounded actually impressive at the time.
14.4 modem, Paul. 14.4
I know. Imagine the speeds you could download. Anyway,
but for another moment, if for bringing back tension to it, for want of a better word, was when Boris is clicking the pen.
Yeah,
and you can just see Pierce looking at him, and then he's clicking it, he's flicking it, and have I lost count? Have I kept count? And he keeps it. Just brought a whole. It brought tension back, and I thought that was quite an exciting part to it as well.
Sean, give us you're you're easily amused, Randy. Really, just a pen. Come on. And Sean, what would you say is your highlight?
Obviously, there's a large number of them, but I'm going to go with the tank chase. I think the tank chase is amazing, and it's just what Bond should and is all about. He's chasing the body. He's using a mode of transport that you wouldn't normally see, and he's turning up the streets in a tank. Like, it's brilliant. He's actually racing the car and catching up and keeping up with him. Takes a detour through a building. Guards chasing, shooting all over him. Pierce actually stops the tank, fixes the tie, drives on. It's just proper, pure Bond. It's brilliant. Brilliant. And I am actually a big fan of the score of this film, by the way, but I do love, like, they got John Ottman in to do this wee piece, but it's a brilliant score. It's hard to get. You can find it on certain channels like YouTube and things, but I think it's brilliant, and it just sets it. You get the Bond theme blasting, flying around St. Petersburg in a tank. Top-notch Bond right there.
I love that you'd have a hot take on the score there, because it's so easy to poo-poo that score, but I love that you like it. It's great.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it just, like, if you play that, everyone knows straight away that's GoldenEye. You can play a certain other themes. Oh, I'm not sure what one is. Everyone knows GoldenEye straight away. It's so synonymous with the film. It's funny, isn't it? Because I think some of the critiques of things like Thomas Newman or something is that there's no real hook. People say you go where you can't really hum the sort of theme, which is what was Barry's real gift. John Barry could just write a hook like nobody else. If you think back to The Man with the Golden Gun, If You Two Kill, whatever it is, he was
a genius at paring down a very simple hook that people walked out of the cinema humming.
Well,
I don't think necessarily Eric Serra got that, but he certainly got the sound all right. You know, he owned that sound.
Everyone knows it's Goldeneye straight away.
Yeah. That's true.
And then obviously you have the experience of love at the end. Like what goes wrong there? You
know? No, you may have crossed a line, Sean. This is where you leave us behind and win the foremost GoldenEye fan award. But we'll come back to that one. Yeah. Kev, what was your highlight?
You've all taken the highlights, so this is. I'm left with the one little micro highlight I'll point out is when he's in France and he's going out to the yacht. And he's doing little Bond sneaky stuff. He's being Bond, you know, he's sneaky stuff around. And he just, you know, sees the reflection and the towel just goes off like that. And you're, baddie dispatched. I think, so early in the movie, you don't have a mission, but he's being Bond. He's doing that role. And I love it. I love it from that. You can see the senses and the thinking is going on. Something's not quite right here. I'm going to get into it. So I think it's a great little micro moment of him establishing the character for the 90s.
I once tried to open our patio door like he does in that, you know.
Oh yeah, I love that.
I nearly smashed the thing to pieces. I will never do a Pierce door opening again.
I've done that with blazers on in the past just to try.
It's the way he walks in. It's the stance. The legs. It's just the way he just goes.
Yeah.
Also, we know where he's walking up to look at the boat, and he kind of goes through where the play is on, and he just. To hell with the play, I'm cutting through here. He has a stride about it. I've done that going up steps as well at times, pretend.
So, I mean, I don't want to get too, poncy about this, but, it did take a lot of the humor that we know to be Bond, right? It took a lot of what Bond was good at, but it made it very 90s. How do you think it succeeded in the 90s? What made it a film for the 90s? And I'd like to get responses from the GoldenEye generation here, because you were the ones who sort of came into this straight away and thought what is this? And I love it. And then you found out that there was 30 years history of it as well. So what made it a powerful film for the 90s?
Yeah, it's the first introduction to DB5 as well since Thunderball, is that right? So
30 years, yeah.
30 years, yeah. So when I started watching it and I started getting into the games, I was looking at in the multiplayer. You could play as Baron Samedi, and you could play as Odd Job, and you could play as the different characters. So it kind of got me thinking, well, what else is going on? So it really kind of threw you back. Well, what characters are they from? And have a look at the other films. So it really kind of generated that. But definitely the N64 game, that tie-in, that was part of my generation as well, and that really got me fired up in terms of, so we got the DB5, we've got these multiplayer characters. What else is going on in the previous 30 as you mentioned, Paul? Because I had kind of seen, when I seen the pre-titles and I seen the plane jump, I was a little bit, I'm not sure about that. But as I kind of got more into it, and then I started kind of looking at the history of the Bonds, it really started kicking off then, and making sense. And
so the game made sense to you more than the film at some point.
I think so. Yeah, I think I had the game. I watched the film and I liked it, but the game was really one that kind of kicked off, I suppose, my imagination of, well, what else is available in the universe of James Bond, and all these other.
If I could just throw another thank you out to Calvin for. I'm the worst gamer in the world. I'm the guy standing constantly walking into the corner who can't get out and find his way around the place. So I have you to thank for getting me through the games that I can't get through. So From Russia with Love, Quantum of Solace, these are brilliant. I had these games.
Oh, good.
And I really had such an affection for From Russia with Love, because I love that film and I love Connery. And hearing his older voice on top of it was kind of nostalgic, but not the same as well. But it was a good game, I thought.
I love that game. Yeah, it's one of those that I kind of wish would be preserved, because it is like Brosnan's Everything or Nothing. It is like a proper, it's a Bond actor doing a Bond performance. And I kind of wish that they could be, just preserved in some kind of library, some kind of archive. But,
and there's something else about that as well, is the way he went back to it in, was it 2003, 2005, something like that? it was just the fact that, wow, he does have affection for Bond still into his beyond retirement, that felt nice, because obviously the acrimony was famous, but that was kind of.
I think the check he got for it felt nice as well.
I know, Andy. Can we turn that? Is there a cynic filter we can turn on? Yeah, I mean, who knows? But it was great. It was great to see him back. And I think one of the things I liked about that game is they managed to get his movement down. It was a really Connery movement in the game. I thought it was super cool.
But here, just as on top of that, like for the generation like of the gamers, like GoldenEye is such an amazing game that everything has reached to ever since. So there was already a bit of a genre there, or like a group of people there that were going to look at, this is to do with the Bond franchise. So it spawned a whole new fan base from before there was a 6-year gap. Like I know for me, coming into the game, playing the game, there's a film, I got hooked straight away, but it was the film that did, like the game got me in, but it was the films then that brought it all, sort of to life, for want of a better word. Yeah. So like there was, the hook was there. Yes, it might have been the game for a lot of people, but then you realize, there's a film, there's a franchise, and then it grows from there. But in terms of the GoldenEye film, it brought everything up to date in terms of action, in terms of this is where people want to see characters going, the stronger female characters, so that set a template moving forward. And I'm not saying it's a reboot by any stretch of the imagination, but it brought Bond first into the 90s. Cultures were changing, like the Cold War, everything was finishing, the Berlin Wall was down, the 90s then kicked off a big boom, and then everything just went forward, and Bond was part of that. So, like, massive culture swing, and Bond was on the top of that. So, but the GoldenEye was the film. It's the first of the 90s. Yes, it was 95, but it's the first Bond film in the 90s. And then, not the dish nowadays, but we get a Bond film every 2 years for a couple of years. So, so Bond was relevant, and it stayed relevant,
Certainly as a kid, like watching it. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, you go ahead, Calvin, please.
I was going to say, certainly as a kid, like watching it in the 90s as well, compared to, like I said, I can't remember exactly how many Bond films I'd seen previously, but GoldenEye felt like a real grown-up film. It felt like, maybe I shouldn't be watching some of this, where like Xenia's in bed with the Admiral, and some of the more, the grittier sort of violence.
That was funny. If you're a kid watching that and you go, is that how sex works? No, it is definitely not.
I still remember, I think we were like 9 years old or something, like talking like in our school, in our class about like, is that what it's like? And someone was, this is definitely like, I don't know what age you're pitching this podcast at, but I'm going to tell this story anyway, because there was one kid in the class who was telling us that like sex works like that, and if like the woman like has almost like that movie Teeth, where they can like clamp on and like hold men in there, and this kid was like telling us all like this is how sex works, and it was like, oh my god, whoa, this is like, so women can just do that? It's like really, I
love the way in the class nobody checks that source. Where do you get your information from? Were you watching a film called Teeth? It's that's the funny thing, isn't it? When you're a kid, you don't understand these stuff, and you're like, wow, do people really do that? But can you die with a huge smile on your face? I don't know.
I mean, like the whole travelogue element. When you think of the mid-90s, like in Ireland, like there was very little, cheap flights. Like if people are flying away,
hold on. No. You're casting your mind back to the 50s, right? It wasn't that bad.
Well, I didn't fly till 96.
What were you, 2 at the time? No, it wasn't that bad now.
I didn't fly till 96, so to see him going to Monaco and drinking champagne was
that was still pretty much out of reach. Definitely. But we could. There was definitely travel in those days that you could, like, unlike maybe the 1960s, early 1960s was still the post-war post-war austerity was just beginning to recede, and color was coming back into people's lives, kind of thing. By the 90s, it was there. It was definitely not, though, the way it was. Ireland didn't really start booming until a little bit later into the 90s.
But it was around that. It was a perfect moment. I think that's the beauty of the movie and the game, because you have that perfect moment of where things are suddenly, especially in this part of the world, kind of on the up again, and you have fresh newness, And I think the game as well in particular, like for me, I saw the movie first and I made it a mission. I was a student at the time. I was over in the UK and I came back to Ireland. I was working in a TV shop, big old TVs. And there was one computer on the model on display for this is the future, guys. So I made it my mission. I had the GoldenEye trailer on endless loop on that computer in a small town for the whole day for about 2 weeks over Christmas.
Excellent.
And I said, that's my thing. And it was good, fine, movie, finished. And then I went back and the game was suddenly being played. And I think that just gave it the longevity of GoldenEye, the brand, the awareness was coming out because people were on the N64 doing this for how long? And I think that really, really just that perfect time of change and availability and getting access to these things. Yeah. It couldn't have been timed any better, I think, from a 90s point of view.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah.
What do you think if Ian Fleming had gone into a coma in 1964 and woken up in 1995 and he had seen GoldenEye, what do you think he would make of it?
Jeez, he'd be happy, man.
He'd be a happy man. Would he turn around and go, you know what, John, you're right, that's a great film. I just love
it. You know what, it'd be a complete culture shock to him. But like who knows what he would.
Well, it would, and that goes back to something you mentioned about. It's kind of a shock that it's this far into their discussion, and we're only now mentioning Judi Dench. When you say like the modern strong women that you mentioned, I mean, putting her in the role as M was something incredible. And as the first time you've seen a direct character change, she's not the M of before; she's a new M. And that made now obviously they had Stella Rimington in was head of MI5 at that point, so they had a role model to look to. But it was a stroke of genius, and it's something else that you put someone like Judi Dench in the role, and she's not she's not even like in maybe the top 3 of the highlights of the whole film. And okay, maybe she is depending on your perspective, but I mean that is a testament to how good the film is, but how much of a stroke of genius I think it was putting her in that role. I mean, she's lasted up until Skyfall in 2012, and much missed after that.
100%. But again, it just shows the new people on the block in terms of Barbara and Michael. Like they knew what they were getting, and that's why you always keep hearing the franchise is in good hands, and like that's proof in the pudding. They always seem to make the right choices, like the likes of Judi Dench and like. The Judi Dench with the career that she already had, never been doing Bond, that was bringing other fans into the franchise as well. So yeah, it works on a number of different levels. 100%.
Now we got off to an early start with our celebration because it's not really until November that it's actually 30 years. So it's 29 and a wee bit years, but
it's a year-long celebration.
We're going to have another screening at the end of the year. Calvin, do you have any screenings lined up or plans to celebrate GoldenEye the 30th anniversary? Hint, hint. There's a spare bed over here if you want to.
Well, I was going to ask actually. Yeah, when is your screening?
Well, we have it tabled for November. Do we have an actual booking, Sean, or is it just?
It's in around the middle of November. Yeah, we're trying to keep it sort of early November, but I'll confirm that date for you. Yeah.
Once we have the date confirmed, we'll let you know because
please do. Yeah, because I've not heard of any other screenings happening at the moment. But I mean, perhaps that will come later on in the year. I don't know. And it's a busy year for Bond anniversaries. This, with
sure is. Yeah.
Thunderball, Spectre, View to a Kill. So it's but obviously GoldenEye has the special place in a lot of our hearts here. I think so. It'd be really cool. Yeah, it's great that you're doing another screening because I know that you had one recently, obviously. So it's
what we did was we mapped out. The 4 films this year. 4,
yeah.
We tried to map them.
Navan was a wee bonus, wasn't it?
Release time. Navan just popped up. They said that the local cinema said we're going to show the screening there, and we thought, well, Christ, let's jump on that bandwagon and we'll get our boy John G to take us around and show us the locations. So that was kind of a bonus boon out of the gate, but we were going to do it closer to the actual release date as well, so we can really get on the bandwagon.
We penciled in the 15th of November. That's the date.
15th of November.
Okay. Yeah, put it in your calendar.
I am doing that right now.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you haven't been to Ireland before, is that correct?
No, I haven't. So yeah, this would be a great excuse.
We'll put up the bunting, and we will. Yeah.
I can't believe David Zaritsky beat me.
He did.
It's ridiculous.
And I hightailed it out of the country when the minute I heard he was coming. It was just a mistiming. I happened to be in the States when he was over here. So, but yeah. So
we'll be at the airport, Calvin, with a big sign with your name on it, and
we'll be wearing one of those.
To us.
Yeah, I'm wearing a chauffeur's hat and
one of those Robbie Coltrane cars
nothing else.
GoldenEye collection.
This is not the way we keep people at the airport. Or who said that? Was it John? No, we'll be fully clothed, but we'll be more than happy to have you. What other plans do you have to celebrate Bond this year? Are you going to be doing more videos, more content, more travel? What are you up to?
Oh, well, yeah, I feel hopefully more travel. That would be nice. I just got back from Thailand and seeing Scaramanga's, island, which was like a childhood dream come true. Yeah. That was amazing. So, and then cue the music, of course, later on in the year. I'm already super excited about that. I'm really lucky that those concerts land very near my birthday every year, it seems. So it's a great sort of excuse for me to have that as my birthday celebration. Are you guys going?
Yes.
I think everybody here is going, aren't we?
Oh, amazing.
We are.
Yeah.
We're going to be like your Kato, Calvin. Every time you oh, Jesus. You guys again.
Oh no, I love that the Cue the Music shows have become that kind of real coming together of the fandom. It's a really nice thing because obviously we don't really have as Bond fans like like they have Star Wars conventions and Marvel conventions and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like it's sort of up to Bond fans to sort of create those events themselves, I think. And the Cue the Music show has really become that, I think, where everyone kind of gets together every year, which is really 100%.
Lovely. I mean, there are some great events. Some of them are more accessible than others, but there's something for everybody, I think. And we try to do our bit here in terms of screening so that we can get local people to show up because that was one of the great things that John Lennon did. He really put us, because I think everyone was kind of like, oh, I'm the only Bond fan in Ireland, until you just go, oh, actually, I'm not, which was really good. The only Bond fan in the village, as it were.
There's loads. One thing that really warmed me was when we had the GoldenEye screening down here in Cork, and I went on a Sunday night. It was really cold. It's wet. People are complaining how it's just horrible in winter. The cinema was full. I was looking at this going, wow, of all ages, some seeing it for the first time on the big screen, some back again, some like me here for the 400th time and refusing to leave. And, there's such an interest out there still. For a 30-year-old movie, I was thinking, I might be the only one here, but no. And I think that's really encouraging, I think, for this part of the world as well.
Yeah, it's great.
Do you remember when they re-released the Bond films in the cinema? Well, that was definitely here in the UK anyway. But they released they re-released all the films for the 60th anniversary and everything. And I'm pretty sure that GoldenEye was like one of, if not the highest grossing of that particular run that year, which sort of I think like that was there with Goldfinger towards the top, where it's certainly like got the audience in. And I think that, to your point, Kev, I think that just it's to the testimony of the film that it is this sort of like generational milestone really for the series, and that people still get excited about it and will go to the cinema to see it, even though it's on Prime. You've probably got it on DVD at home or whatever, but it's
is it the first Bond film of the modern era? Could we say that? Is it like pre that there was there's not much. Bond doesn't land on top of a boat with a bikinied beauty going, oh, it's all so boring here, Margot, except for flying Land Rovers, which I just missed. That sort of stuff has tapered off a little bit by the time we get to. Is it that? Are we considering the first Bond film of the modern era, or is that me just arbitrarily dividing things into time?
I think it's fair enough.
No, I think you're right. It's just
I still see it that way, but that's also my way of pretending I'm still a bit younger, because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm proud of that.
I definitely see it that way. Gap does that.
Yeah.
I see it that way because it's such a long gap. Like I say, it's 10 years between that and the last Moore film.
I think it's great as well because, like, obviously people debate, ad nauseum about whether it's a continuous character the whole way along, that just never ages, And I think you can go down that rabbit hole if you want. But in terms of a character, and Pierce has said, he saw the influence of Sean and he saw the influence of Roger, but he really wanted to sort of make it a real human, And I think that's the thing that has stayed kind of constant with Bond all the way through. He's a classic hero in the sense that he's a good guy fighting evil, but he's messed up in so many different ways, and he can be so human in so many different ways. I know it's kind of a cliche at this point, but it feels like that's what people find endlessly fascinating. I remember you did a comparison with Ethan Hunt, and you said, I don't know much about this character. He's great to watch, he's great fun, but Bond is just constantly compelling, and that's what kind of brings me back to him decade after decade, incarnation after incarnation. He just seems to be, his flaws and his vulnerabilities are kind of part of his charm. And sometimes, of course, you get a Roger Moore invincible kind of a Bond, and but that also can be fun. But it's just, there's something very kind of, I don't know, compelling about James Bond as a he's not a superhero. He's just a very, I don't know, he's a character that I constantly want to see. I want to see how he evolves. And I personally, I'm not worried about the fact that he is now technically dead. I think we'll come back from that. We'll draw a line under it. We'll figure it out somehow. But just bring him back. He's going to be great in whatever shape he comes back in. That's my mantra for Bond 26, I think.
As soon as we're sitting in the cinema and them dots come across the screen, we know we're back.
We know we're back.
So we're always going to be there. We'll always be there. Yeah.
Okay, let's we can wrap it up formally and then chat a little bit afterwards if we like, but just for the sake of giving it we don't want this to be like a 16-hour ramble-a-thon. But let's just wrap it up. If we can take any lessons from GoldenEye, what would we like to see for Bond 26? And I'll start with you, Sean.
For Bond 26, definitely I would use the template of GoldenEye in terms of try and get an all-out pre-title sequence. Get the fans, Bond is back. And then set the template. Bond, go for his briefing, learn a bit about the bad guy, go meet Q, and we're off to the races. Definitely, I think that's the way to go. Just to get everybody back watching Bond, and it's one of them films you just jump into and you can pick it up wherever, and away you go. And obviously, bringing Brosnan back is the best move they can do. So I'm all for it. Yeah.
Definitely. Calvin, where do you land on that?
Well, I echo all of Sean's thoughts there, really, and I think that GoldenEye is a really good template for how to restart. In a lot of ways, it does the greatest hits. It has Bond in a tux in a casino drinking a martini. It has multiple Bond girls, and it has a nice car. Yeah, exactly. But it does it in a way that feels fresh rather than arbitrary, and it updates it in interesting ways. Again, to your comment just then, Paul, about how it doesn't have him, it's so boring here, Margot, and then he pops in and stuff. It's like when he meets Natalia for the first time, she's screaming in the back of the helicopter, and then he's helping her out, and then she kicks him in his shin and runs off, and it's like, well, this is totally subverting that aspect of the formula, and I think that's a good template moving forward. I think that this character is recognizable for a variety of very good reasons. And again, to your point, Paul, who knows what Ethan Hunt likes to drink, but we all know that Bond likes to drink a vodka martini, and I think that those are greatest hits for a reason. So I think GoldenEye does a really good job at taking those and putting a cool contemporary spin on them and updating them. And I think that Bond 26 could learn a lot from that.
Agreed. And a word that you use there, subvert, I think has been really great as well, because I prefer when they subvert a trope rather than pay homage to it. I prefer when they do something like vodka martini shaken or stirred. Do I look like I give a damn? I prefer that than with an oil covered girl, which throws back to there was a gold covered girl. I see what you did there. It's like, okay, I get that. I like it to be a bit subversive and cheeky. That's yes, that's fun. That brings me in. I'd like to see a little bit of that as well, I think. Anyone else like to see anything specific from Bond 26 that they could call out from GoldenEye?
Please.
Yeah, I think I would go down the line of a good high octane pre-title, back to quite a heavy, rocky theme tune rather than something very so a high rock that's just going to bang straight into
so
the
not
film.
the Sam Smith or Billie Eilish kind of low key ballad type thing.
No, just something more like a Chris Cornell and up that way, and a standalone movie. That would be my big thing. Just standalone.
For Andy, don't be bothered with your arcs.
Don't with the arcs. No, you can shove your arcs up your. And it's been mentioned again a couple of times. If you think people have mentioned like Ethan Hunt a couple of times already, but if you think about it, everything that Ethan Hunt did, in some guise or another, James Bond did it before. Even his big motorbike stunt in the last film, Pierce did it in Goldeneye.
Yeah, and there was the yellow car chase as well, wasn't there? I mean,
so much.
Look, it's all nodding and
he was hanging off a plane years before Ethan Hunt was.
Yes, but was his flight companion, were her ears popping though? That's the question. Okay, phase 2 of this call, Moonraker. Here we go. Another 4 hours.
Yes,
got it all done now.
But here, just a very quick shout out to the theme tune, GoldenEye, Tina Turner. What a tune! What a tune! Like again, and like we linked with Bono and the Edge, Ireland again. But what a theme tune to get it going again. Like after a number of years, or maybe the slower ballads, like Tina Turner just knocks it out of the park.
And what an artist to do it!
Yeah,
I like the story of that where I can't remember how they got involved in it, but they wrote the tune, and then Bono did this kind of rough cut in a studio, and he sent it over to Tina Turner and goes, it's a bit rough, but when we get in the studio, we'll work it out. And she was like, he sent me this thing, and I was like, what the hell is this? I have no idea where to start with this, and well, Jesus, they did a banging job, because it is a great song. And actually, Bono's version is not that bad. Have you heard it on YouTube?
Yeah.
Have you heard that, Calvin?
I don't think I have.
I know I'm doing
it. Yeah. I mean, it's a come down from Tina, but it's got the and I love things like the lines in it. I don't know whether this is a deliberate line, but the line, "You'll never know how it feels to be so close and be denied," feels like Pierce's 10 years earlier attempt at Bond. It's great. It's a great tune. Okay, look, I think that's fantastic. We can wrap it up there as a kind of the end of this, our first episode. I personally have had a great time, and I want to thank Calvin so much for joining us to talk about this film. We love it. We'd love to see you over here. No commitments, no pressure, no nothing, but you're more than welcome at any time, but especially at GoldenEye anniversary time. So we want to thank you, and this episode will be the first, hopefully, of many, and you're welcome back anytime you want. And
I'm definitely coming back. Yeah. This has been too much fun. This has been great.
All right, excellent.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. Honestly, it's really, I'm just really excited that you guys are putting together a podcast, because
listen, if more than 4 people listen to it, we make another one, and you're definitely welcome.
Well, we've got 6 here, so we're.
Do we not count in that? We don't count in that 4, though, do we?
Oh, right.
No. 4 new people. And if a woman watches it, like a non-male, white male person, we're going to make 2 more episodes. I'm joking. That's brilliant. And as I said, look, this is all about engaging the community, having a bit of, as we say, crack, and just enjoying it, because we never get tired of talking about these films, and we don't need to go into them in depth all the time. Sometimes we just need to remember the funny lines and have a laugh over it. It's a bit like when you meet in the Hippodrome and you just have a chat and you go, oh, that was great, wasn't it? So that's what we're trying to recreate a little bit virtually here. So thank you very much, Calvin.
And we don't always have to agree.
Andy, we seldom ever do. That was great. Actually, the only time I disagreed with Calvin was when he had at the end of it, he was like, I mean, sure, Isabella Scorupco is not one of the loves of Bond's life, and he puts in Tracy and Vesper, and then there's a shot of Leia Seydoux, and then he just pauses and goes, well, those other 2. And I was like, how dare you? And that's only because I have a major crush on Leia Seydoux. Come on. Brilliant. But yeah, it is great. It's great having, opinions you can share and opinions you can. I love the hot takes. You know, they're great as well. So look, let's wrap it up there. Thank you very much for your time, and yeah, we'll drop the links to whatever it was we referenced in the show notes below. Again, the first one you should go to is Calvin's review of GoldenEye, which is absolutely tip top hilarious. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you on the next one.